Pablo and I are teaching a class at Exhibitor Live. We are teaching is how to grow social media from events and grow events from social media. We're going to take you through our actual presentation. One of the things I want people to make sure they take out of this and why we are talking about this in this strategy is a couple things. This is a way to meaningfully engage your customer. That is something we talk about on this show all the time, is that when you get face to face, you got to engage meaningfully. Engaging just to engage is a bunch of BS, right? You want to engage your customer the right way. And I think this strategy does that. It also does a lot of other things that we are going to dive into and sort of give you kind of the feature and benefit pitch, you would say, for this.
If I could also jump in real quick,
Yeah,
right? So
fire.
you're talking about the presentation itself. What we're talking about, this podcast as a trade show booth thing, is something that
Yeah.
people can definitely adopt. Can people execute, do a
Yep.
lot of things. I want to just highlight the meta of it all. We're talking about meaningful engagements and how to get your clients, how to get your customer base excited. What we're doing right now, this idea that if you have somebody inside of your company and they're going to give a keynote, or they're going to give some kind of like training at a conference, that you can reach out to your list, you can reach out to your clientele, you can reach out to your prospects and tell people, hey, we're giving this keynote. We want to do a special sneak preview for it. So we're going to do a webinar. Will you join us and give us some feedback? Is something that's
Mhm.
available to everybody, right? Like everybody can
Yep.
do this. And if you're too nervous about it, invite your team, right? Like having your employees and your team like see you giving a presentation about why you do and why it's so smart. It's surprisingly good for like culture
Yep.
building, and it'll really build your career if you can get people to like see you that way. So I just wanted to
Yep.
plant that seed for people.
Awesome. All right, let's rock and roll. So, event marketers, you all are asked to do more every year with fewer resources. It always seems that's a bit of the theme. It always seems that there is this idea that these events have to get the most juice out of the fruit, yet you're given less tools. You're asked to engage the crowd. You are asked to deliver experience. You're asked to create content. You're asked to tie into the marketing. You're asked to gather data. You're asked to drive pipeline. Oh, and by the way, you are asked to pull together $250,000, $50,000, $700,000 trade show booths, events, and activations that they have to go right. They have to look good. The logistics, the planning, the coordination, all of that. So it's just a lot. It's a big ask.
It's a big ask. And you know what you are being told to do that in is a trade show booth a lot of the time, right? So does this feel familiar? Right? Like this idea that you're in a fishbowl, you're standing
That's
inside.
Pablo's spirit animal, by the way.
Get out of here. So you're standing inside this trade show booth that you spent all this time designing, all this time organizing, all this time in sleepless nights, wondering if it's going to get built. And you're there and you're just kind of like trying to make eye contact with everybody. People are walking by. They're averting your attention to look at the swag that you're giving away, see if there's a raffle for them, see if there's like some toy that they're going to be able to throw away later and give it to their
Yeah.
kid while you're trying to engage with people. So, you know, the beauty of what you're really trying to do is garner some attention and break that wall, right? Like get them to stop in their tracks and give them a reason to come talk to you, not to grab a notebook or whatever. So this is why we came up with this strategy.
Okay. So this is the activation that we ran at Exhibitor Live last year. This was our 10 by 20 booth. This is what we would consider a narrative driven booth. We called this Hotel Rockway. All right. And then as you can see on the right side here, we ran a podcast activation. We ran this podcast for 3 days on the show floor. I think I talked more than I ever talked in my entire life, which is saying a lot. You know, we were nominated for Best Small Booth. We did fill our pipeline, which is kind of how we got to this point of like, we ran this play. We've talked about this play. We've talked about the ingredients of how to do this on a trade show and all the positives that come from it. So essentially, here we are to deliver it to you.
Yeah, and one of the beauties of this, right? So I've been running different variations of this play since like early 2019. Obviously, didn't do it in 2020, but it was really my first time doing it with Matt and doing it with Rockway and doing it with a company that really understands this like narrative driven booth experience. And that really, really tied everything together. For us, running this thing, right? It was just breaking past the fishbowl. It's this idea that lights, camera, and action get you to stop in your tracks and be like, "Ooh, who's on TV?" The invite in to speak to a subject matter expert is something that a sales team can say, "Oh my God, that's really interesting. You should go talk to my super smart CEO, Matt, over here about like trade show marketing," and invite them into like an intimate conversation where you have their full attention. And beyond that, 2 weeks after the trade show, when everybody's just getting emails and spams of all these different brochures or whatever people send these days, you're following up with a, "Oh, hey,
Yeah.
by the way, that was cool. We're about to drop your podcast, your YouTube show. Can we just get on real quick and talk about like how we do your description?" So it's a differentiated follow up that people want to get to. But the magic of it was also building this narrative into the booth that then continued the conversation on the show floor, which is really, really impressive.
So
And
let's touch.
yeah.
Yeah, let me walk through people here with what. So we're talking narrative driven booth. You've heard me talk about this before. You're talking narrative, you're talking story, you're talking themes. And what I mean by that is taking your own company and saying, okay, what is the problem we solve for the customer? What is the value proposition that we offer the customer? Or I think your third option is really to say, what is our major point of view on our industry? You then turn that into a theme. You turn that into a story. You take one of those three, turn it into a theme, turn it into a story, turn it into a concept. Ours just so happened to be Hotel Rockaway, a boutique. The idea was it was a boutique hotel, right? What do boutique hotels, what are they? Well, they are intentionally designed, which is what we feel like we do for our clients, and they are personalized service, right? So we basically took the problems we solve and our value proposition to our clients, and we turned it into Hotel Rockaway. And the idea here was, even in a 10, I mean, this is a 10 by 30 space. It's not that big of a space. It's not some massive 40 by 40. This is a normal size inline booth, but we were still, in my opinion, able to make it a themed, narrative driven, immersive experience for our customers, where people were asking, what's Hotel Rockaway? Why is your booth a hotel? Right. And then what's funny is when people ask that question, you're then able to position yourself with what you believe your value proposition and the problem you solve for somebody is. And that to me is a narrative driven approach.